order regular meeting Wednesday, November 17th, 2021, 6 p.m. at the Old Town Hall, 1111 Somerset Avenue, Dayton, Mass. 02715. Those seeking to provide public input should do so using the methods listed below. Video and audio of the meeting will be aired on Comcast Local TV 9 and on the Town of Dayton Planning and Land Use YouTube channel, which can be accessed using this link, www.youtube.com/channel/UC. You should be able to log right on. Public input may be provided using the following methods. Email keasterday@dayton-ma.gov 1 day prior to the meeting. Use the email subject line Planning Board 11/17/2021 public input and include your name and address for the record. The Zoom meeting is at www.zoom.com or dial by your location 646-558-8656, meeting ID of 988-9483-5364. Passcode is 456742. Again, the meeting ID is 988-9483-5364 with a passcode of 45642. This is a public meeting being video and audio recorded for cable broadcast. I'd just like to have the audience's attention for a second, please. We have member Jeff Cavallo, who's with us via Zoom. Our engineer, Mr. Peter Williams, is with us via Zoom. And the gentleman in the middle, Carrie?
Is Mr. Dylan Firth for STEM? I believe that's for Grasshopper.
Okay, thank you. Would everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Gentlemen of the board, I'd like to entertain a motion to confirm the next meeting date of December 1st of 2021. There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Gentlemen, let's vote by roll. Vice Chairman Woods.
Aye.
Member Figueredo.
Aye.
Member Cunha.
Aye.
Member Cavallo.
Aye.
Chairman Rhines. Aye. We move on to number 4, business. A, review, discuss, and act on the Center Street Woods subdivision, Marist Lane, map 9, lot 57, 152, and 154 for a minor modification request. Is the applicant here? Would you please step to the podium, sir? Please identify yourself with your name, your address, and any affiliation.
My name is Rick Bissett. I'm with Northeast Building Company in Marist Development at 125 West Road in Cumberland, Rhode Island.
You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. So we had sent in a request to change the curbing at the entrance on the east side of Marist Lane. It's called to be a granite curb right now, and with a small asphalt sidewalk behind it. We're proposing to change it to a concrete curb with a concrete sidewalk behind it, so a more uniform appearance. We checked it with Tom Ferry and Mr. Williams, and I had walked through it, and he didn't seem to have any objections. I don't want to speak for him. Several other things came up after that, but that was my application only states that. We sent another subsequent email since then, after meeting with Mr. Williams out in the field, and he had a couple other suggestions, or we had kind of brainstormed with a couple of the neighbors, and came up with some other items also. Should we go through those first, or discuss the sidewalk/curb?
Let's go to the sidewalk/curbing. I've had the opportunity to speak to Highway Superintendent Ferry. He has mentioned to me that he had discussions with you.
Yes, sir.
Along with Mr. Williams on site about the proposed change you'd like to make up there, and they both were in agreement. I don't know if our building commissioners had an opportunity to go through this application or the minor modification that's being requested on Center Street.
I have not gone through it in earnest, sir, sorry. I'm tied up with other things.
And I'm sure that at the time, Jim, you will give your input as necessary. Thank you. So, Mr. Bissett, sure, indulge us.
So continuing on, after walking the project, the street trees were already placed and the grass strip that's supposed to be between the proposed sidewalk and the back of the Cape Cod berm after the entrance throughout the rest of the subdivision. The first thing we came up with was relocating those trees behind the sidewalk, which would be on private property at this point. It's not in the plan, so we can't force anybody to accept that. I still own 5 of the lots, so out of the 9. So I control those 5 lots. I have no problem with having the trees be behind the sidewalk as opposed to in that grass strip. The thought process was, it's a very tight grass strip. It's 2 or 3 feet wide, 3 feet pretty much, and we run the risk of the roots undermining in the future, the sidewalk and/or the street. So we talked about moving those behind the sidewalk. So continuing down the street around the cul-de-sac, when you get to lot 6, they have a septic system that's already in front of their house with the breakout. Are you familiar with the terminology for the septic system? Okay. So the breakout comes awfully, it ends up, the toe of the slope is almost on the sidewalk. Never mind the trees. So we said, well, we can push the sidewalk a little closer, or maybe put the trees somewhere else. And the homeowner was there, and Mr. Williams was there, and we talked about ending the sidewalk at the access road that goes to the holding pond behind lot 6, between 5 and 6. We'd use the access road, we'd pave the apron all the way in, use it as the wheelchair transition from the street to the sidewalk, and any trees that were missing because of the way his house is in the front, we would in turn put like a boulevard up that on either side of the access road. So once that came up, the 2 people that own lot number 4, their name escapes me, they don't want any trees in front of their house at all. And they told us why, and they've got their septic system is in the front of the house, so we're kind of limited as to where we could put it. They have a drainage problem already at their house. They just asked, I believe there are 3 trees, that might be 4, and they're already in. They just asked if we would relocate them somewhere else on the property. And I think that's when the idea of lining the access road came up. So that was one issue. And the last one was at the entrance. We have, right now it's called for curbing on both sides of the entrance, in front of the retaining walls. So on the easterly side, we've already discussed that. We've got a sidewalk. We're gonna get rid of the little narrow asphalt sidewalk, make it concrete, and at least visually, it'll look like it's a lot wider because now it's it's a homogeneous topping all the way across. On the other side of the street, the westerly side, the curb is about 6 inches. The back of the curb would be about 6 inches off that retaining wall that we've veneered with stone. And so I said, what do we do with the grass strip, weed strip? It's not like it's in front of anybody's house who's going to maintain it. Mr. Williams had said, well, we could turn it into a Cape Cod berm and widen the street at that point and run the berm right up to the bottom of the line of stone that's already there. We put that stone on. That was the grade of that stone was calculated based on the height of the curb, the proposed curb, and the top coat that's going on the road. So that's the height above it. So it's 6 inches basically above the gutter line of the road. So we turned that into a sort of a modified Cape Cod berm. Now that I have not discussed with Mr. Ferry, only Mr. Williams.
Okay. In regards to the tree locations, would you be willing to work with the residents to not put any trees on their properties? And the highway superintendent mentioned to me that if you do have any leftover trees, that he also serves as a tree warden. The town of Dayton could use a donation of trees if possible, if you have any left over, because there are some locations on the campus here that we lost some trees, so.
We'll plant them for you. I don't want to make it seem like we're trying to cut back on what our obligations are.
Not at all, not at all.
So, yeah, that's fine. You have a homeowner sitting here from Lot 3 who got wind of the whole tree relocation program, and he called me and said, I'd rather not have any trees at all. I don't think anybody minds the trees. It's just when you start putting them in the front yard, some of these houses are already at the minimum setback, and they just feel like right now they've got a front yard that's 50 feet long, or so they assume, because it goes right to the curb, and to the Cape Cod berm, and I don't believe it was ever explained to them from the get-go that, well, no, there's a grass strip, and then there's a sidewalk, and then your property starts. So they've been maintaining this, cutting it, putting sprinklers in, everything else. I've already assured them that when we do the sidewalks, we would fix whatever had to be done to the sprinklers while we're
Yeah,
doing
'cause
it.
that was my next question, because I understood that the resident did have, he's already been there, been established and put a sprinkler system in, and of course, you don't wanna, have it torn up or covered up. So for that matter, if the contractor is willing to relocate your sprinkler system, you're amenable to that?
Yes.
And you're amenable to any,
Yeah, no, we'll repair whatever we damage. We're not going out there hunting for heads to try and destroy them, but if
absolutely
they're in the way of the asphalt, the pavement's gotta go where the pavement has to go. So we can move those around.
now, your veneer that's on the wall, that was stuck on last year around, late November, early December, and of course, it didn't stick, so it just fell down, so.
Well, a few pieces have, but
A few
they,
pieces out. They're on top of the wall. I drove through the subdivision earlier today.
we've got a whole box of replacements, because we use the same stuff on the facade of
I'd just
lot
like to
number
ask
one.
if it could be done, if you have to wait till spring to get it done, so that way it's warmer, you'll have more of an opportunity where the cement is, the backing's gonna stick, is what it is. So it just fell down and fell off. Before I open it up to Mr. Williams, I'm gonna ask the members of the board if they have any questions of the applicant.
Well, in regards to the veneer, is there an HOA, I guess would be my first question?
There is an HOA.
Are they going
We're
to?
a member of one right now.
Okay. And will the HOA assume the maintenance on the stone veneer?
Well, the HOA will assume the maintenance for the whole subdivision, but
Okay.
Going further.
we will make sure that everything is as it's supposed to be before we turn it over to them. We're still paying all the bills, even though, half the place is occupied. We still pay all the taxes on the holding pond, we do the maintenance on it. We've been plowing the road. It hasn't been allocated on a per unit basis for any of that stuff. We just foot in the bill for everything. So we'll continue to do that until we're ready to turn it over to them.
Any other questions of the board?
I mean, he's here, right? There's nobody else from the neighborhood, but,
Mr. Souza, any comment before I go to our engineer?
Wait, I got something. Joe, you got nothing?
No, I agree with everything he said. It's kind of refreshing to hear someone that seems to know what they're talking about. Going into this, I just want to say that up front, so.
thank you. Well,
Chamber Woods?
my only comment about Mr. Souza was that, since we've taken over there, we've had a fairly good working relationship. He's been sort of the mouthpiece for the neighborhood, because his house was the most ill-affected by prior bad acts, I guess, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I understand your working relationship has been just as good with our building commissioner also.
Yeah, we've had no
Yeah,
problem.
so.
I'd just like to make a couple comments on the trees. Jessica Daly did not want a tree in front of her house, and
But
it was actually put like right next to a catch basin.
we moved that.
So you removed it?
We moved it over, yeah, so.
Right,
put a
because I
sign
went
on
by
it.
one day and it wasn't planted. And then I went by a couple of days later and it was planted. And there was a sign right on the tree, please do not plant this tree.
Yeah, well,
So it got planted and it got removed?
got relocated, yes.
Relocated.
And now to be relocated.
Is she happy? She's not here now.
Not here
As
this
happy
evening.
as she gets, she seemed to be. I mean,
Okay.
we had a meeting that day,
Okay.
Mr. Williams is up
Craig,
there
is she
somewhere.
happy? As far as I know. Okay. I did reach out to her today. She has not got back to me, but, that development and everybody in there has been put through the ringer,
I understand,
okay? And we want everything taken care of.
we want to take care of
These
it,
people are gonna be big taxpayers. Everybody in there has a really nice home,
yep.
and we want everything to be right before we sign off on anything.
No, that's why we're here,
And
to
thank you
try and
very
make it
much.
right, but
You seem to be doing a much better job than the last people.
she seemed fine when we met, a week and a half ago.
If she's happy, I'm happy.
Okay,
Okay.
I can't
We
speak for
only
her,
get
but she
calls
seemed
in
to,
the middle of the night.
Yeah.
please?
We get calls in the middle of the night.
Oh, well.
Yeah, the tree issue is,
That was a communication problem, I think, with the,
right, and then it comes to the point where, is the tree in this person's property, or does it belong to the town? Because, 50 years from now, when the trees are overgrown and they're falling down, and you go call the highway department, and they'll say, well, that's your problem.
I can't speak to
right?
that.
Or the highway department will say, no, that's our problem. But more than likely, they're gonna say that's your problem. So we wanna know whose problem these trees are gonna be.
Well, in 50 years, it won't be mine, so.
Right, but it's gonna be somebody's.
It'll be
right?
somebody's,
And
yes,
we're
I
here
agree.
to protect those people.
No,
Right.
I don't disagree.
And then you get the leaves.
But if they're behind the sidewalk and they're on that person's property, then there's no doubt as to who's responsible for them.
Right.
If they're in that, it's not a no man's land, it's clearly owned by the town, that grass strip. But I don't know how the
If
town
I was
charter
the
reads.
homeowner, I'd rather have it on that portion,
And we,
right? So I wouldn't have to be responsible.
well,
but-
the only, excuse me, I'm sorry, the only thing is you put that on a grass strip. As soon as that tree grows a little bit, the road is gonna come up, the
Right.
sidewalk is gonna come up. Either plant them inside the property or don't put them in at all.
Well, then I would let
Because
that
it's-
be the
it's-
homeowner's decision.
Well, as the homeowner of 5 of them, I'm willing to move them and put them, I think the street trees look nice.
Yeah.
And we're already committed to spending the money for them, so let's.
Yeah, I'm not giving you a
Let's
hard
make
time,
it,
sir.
let's make it look as nice as possible. Agreed that there is a potential for undermining of the road and the sidewalk, but again, they won't undermine that road. I'll be on to 10 projects down the road or retired before that happens. So that again won't be my issue, but I'm trying to get in front of it. I'm willing to move every single tree we put in to placate the board and whatever you guys decide.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams, any comments?
Yes, I agree that the proposed minor modifications are probably in the best interest of the project and the future homeowners. And I was very pleased at how Mr. Bissett was working. We were actually very lucky that day to actually have the affected homeowners come out and talk to us. And we had a great meeting with the affected homeowners, and they were very pleased with the proposed changes. And I think this works out for everyone's best interest. With regard to the street trees being on the homeowners' properties, as Mr. Bissett indicated, that the house that has been most impacted by the water problems there, their trees will not be, they'll be removed from the front of their property and either move along the access road out to the detention pond or used for the town's purpose someplace else. And the other thing, to maintain that some trees along the roadway, I believe Mr. Bissett is gonna be working with for the lots that he owns to have them installed within the owner's front yard property. And he can make it clear to them that this will be their long-term, responsibility in the future, and that it actually, makes their property and the roadway look better.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Before I move on, Member Cavallo, any questions of the applicant or the engineer?
Mr. Chairman, I have no concerns, and I'm glad that all this is being done, and they're working closely with the current residents, and I'm sure they're looking forward to getting this all wrapped up. So, no concerns here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Souza? Yes. If you would step to the podium, please.
Thank you, sir.
Your name and your address, if you would, please.
So my name is Craig Souza. I live on 15 Marist Lane. I guess it's just a question. I know it's on the plans, but what is the purpose of the sidewalks, if I may ask? Is it just a safety thing, or is it a?
Public safety, a lot of times it's aesthetics also. But in the case of, if you have a resident who moves in who is, he's handicap accessibility, that's the reason why the sidewalks are there. It opens up that avenue for other residents who are, disabled to possibly move into your subdivision.
Okay. And then we're gonna leave the tree installation up to the homeowners, correct? Because obviously I do not want them, because my house is not situated, was originally supposed to be situated, so I'm a lot closer to the street.
Correct. We're
than
gonna
what-
leave that decision up to you and the
Okay.
contractor to work with the residents within the subdivision itself. Mr. Bissett has been willing to, of course, work with everyone there, so as far as I'm concerned, he fits out of the criteria, so.
Perfect. That's all I had. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you.
Mr. Souza. Thank you.
I have one other question. As far as the sidewalks, you said in the beginning that the entrance, the sidewalk is very narrow.
It's, I think aesthetically, it's gonna look narrow if you have, typically a sidewalk's 4 feet wide.
Yeah.
And it's all the same material. So if you have a 6 to 8 inch wide curb there, and then the rest of it is asphalt, you look down on it, it's gonna look like you're kind of walking a tightrope.
Correct.
So,
But it does meet the handicap access.
yes. Mr. Williams, kind of lost him on the,
Mr. Williams, if you would, expound upon that, if you would, please, if that,
I believe that the minimum, width of the sidewalk can be 30 inches in certain situations, in most situations, when there's no obstructions along the sidewalk, within the sidewalk width.
I've seen a lot of sidewalks with mailboxes on them and telephone poles and stuff like that, and I would not like to see that in this case here, because then that defeats the purpose of having.
that will not be the
Sidewalk.
case. Where we're talking.
There won't be any mailboxes in the area of the culvert crossing. And, that's only where this narrow, the concrete side, combined curb and concrete sidewalk will be placed. And I believe that the, incoming electric is underground, so you won't see you won't have that sort of problem. And they would certainly span, if there were poles installed for other utilities, they would span that, short distance.
So they're correct, there are no mailboxes at the entrance. Once you move into the subdivision proper, the 3-foot grass strip separates the sidewalk from the street. And if you tried to put a mailbox on the sidewalk, the mail carrier wouldn't deliver the mail, you're too far off they have to be able to access it. They want it right behind the curb.
Yes.
And they're on the
yes.
telephone poles, it's underground.
Usually the sidewalk is flush with the curbing. The mailbox is flush with the edge of the
Right,
curb.
so we're 3 feet behind that. So there shouldn't be anything with the exception of these trees, which are now resolved, there won't be anything stopping the 4-foot sidewalk from running the whole way of the same length,
Love it.
same width, sorry.
Welcome. I swear it's refreshing.
isn't it?
It really is.
It certainly is.
Thank you.
Blush.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you,
Bissett.
sir.
If the members of the board have no other questions of the applicant or the engineer, I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the minor modification, change the curbing, the granite curb specified at the entrance to the concrete curbing and replace the proposed asphalt sidewalk with concrete, then transition back to asphalt after retaining walls at the entrance.
I'll make
So
a
moved.
motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, let's vote by roll.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Woods.
Aye.
Member Figueredo.
Aye.
Member Cavallo.
Aye.
Member Cunha.
Aye.
Chairman Rhines. Aye. Mr. Bissett, thank you very much.
But the other few items with the length of the sidewalk to the access road and the tree business, and the curbing on the west side of that wasn't part of
That was,
it was a subsequent email after meeting with Mr. Williams.
so gentlemen, we're not done yet. So I'm going to entertain a motion that the placing of the street trees behind the sidewalk will be behind the sidewalk wherever possible, and this would prevent the roots from affecting either the road or the sidewalk.
I'll make that motion.
Motion has been made by Mr. Figueredo. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded by Mr. Cunha. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, let's vote. By roll. Vice Chairman Woods.
Aye.
Member Figueredo.
Aye.
Member Cavallo.
Aye.
Member Cunha.
Aye.
Chairman Rhines. Aye. I'm going to entertain a motion that the applicant end the sidewalk at the access road between lots 5 and 6, that the breakout slope for the lot 6 septic system is too close to the berm to replace the sidewalk and grass strip without compromising the perimeter of the system.
I'll make that motion.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, let's vote. By roll. Vice Chairman Woods.
Aye.
Member
Aye.
Figueredo. Member Cavallo.
Aye.
Member Cunha.
Aye.
Chairman Rhines. Aye. Gentlemen, I'm going to entertain a motion that the applicant relocate the street trees for Lot 3 to the line access road.
I think after the conversation, we need to modify that. Whatever street trees we relocate, Mr. Souza's and, lot number 4. Lot 3 and 4. I'll coordinate with Mr. Ferry. If someone's gonna come here, we're not gonna, if you take them all and line that access road, it's gonna look like a Blackstone Boulevard going into the back. So, if you want them here, we'll put them here.
Okay.
But we have to coordinate with Mr. Ferry on that.
So gentlemen, I'm going to entertain a motion that the trees at Lot 3 and 4 be donated by the applicant to our
Tree warden.
tree warden, Mr. Thomas Ferry. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, let's vote. By roll. Mr. Williams?
Yes, I mean, there was some discussion, I don't know if there's an expectation by the house that abuts the detention basin that he would be receiving some trees to buffer his view of the basin, basically.
He is expecting some, but he did not want them all. So we have the ones that are coming off of Lot 4, and additionally the ones that are coming off Mr. Souza's lot. So we'll coordinate with Matt, I can't remember his last name, the owner at Lot 6, and Mr. Ferry. And put the trees,
I agree with that.
we'll bring them here and plant them wherever it works out that they need to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They may even volunteer to plant them instead of you doing it.
Jeff, there's been a vote, a motion and a second, excuse me, a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, let's vote by roll. Vice Chairman Woods.
Aye.
Member Figueredo? Member Cavallo?
Aye.
Member Cunha?
Aye.
Chairman Rhines? Aye.
Good move.
Yes, there is. Gentlemen, I'm going to entertain a motion that the applicant widen the road at the entrance by replacing the curb on the west side with a capered berm and placing it against the retaining wall. This would eliminate the 6-foot wide grass strip behind the proposed curbing.
Make that one.
Motion has been made. Is there- and second. And any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, let's vote by roll. Vice Chairman Woods?
Aye.
Member Figueredo? Member Cavallo?
Aye.
Member Cunha?
Aye.
Chairman Rhines? Aye. Mr. Bissett, you are ready to go. Any information that you would need going forward, please reach out to Mrs. Easterday, our office manager. And, Mr. Souza, satisfied?
Absolutely,
Thank you very much.
Mr.
Have a great
Souza, it's
evening.
the light at the end of the tunnel that you see now.
I always say, I hope I never see you guys again.
Oh, thanks a
So,
lot.
thank you very much. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, gentlemen.
All right, good night, gentlemen.
Good night.
Mr. Williams, thank you very much. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you very much, too, same for you.
Thank you. Gentlemen of the board, I'm going to entertain a motion that we continue the public, open the public hearing, reopen the public hearing for Grasshopper Energy, 0 Brook Street, map 16, lot 28, special permit site plan, major modification request.
Motion moved.
Second.
Gentlemen, there's been a second, the motion and a second. Let's vote by roll. Vice Chairman Woods?
Aye.
Member Figueredo?
Aye.
Member Cavallo?
Aye.
Member Cunha?
Aye.
Chairman Rhines? Aye. If we could have the applicant please approach the podium, please. If you would please identify yourself by name, address, and affiliation.
Yes, my name is Victoria Dalmas, and I am an attorney with Seni and Associates, 15 Cape Lane in Brewster, and I'm here representing Grasshopper Energy Corporation.
Thank you. You have the floor.
Thank you. First, let me thank the board, Carrie for arranging, the fire chief, the building inspector, and the Stormwater Committee for the site view. We greatly appreciate that. I'd like to introduce the team that's here tonight, and they are available to ask questions, answer questions that you may have. With Grasshopper, we have the Chief Commercial Officer, Jonathan Persaud here. I'll stand up just to... We also have Ahmed Hafetz, who's the Director of Construction Management. I think on the Zoom, we should have from STEM. STEM, they are the specialists behind the proposed BESS, the battery storage system. We have Dylan Firth. Maybe Dylan, just say hello.
He's there.
He's there, okay.
Hey, how's it going? Nice to meet everyone. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Dylan. And we also have Steve Jaditz, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, also with STEM via Zoom.
You got it. Hi.
Great, thank you so much. For the engineering team, we do have, you're familiar with Nick Fasandola, who's our engineer of record. He's here. Also accompanying Nick, we have Chris King, with whom you're familiar. And Chris is the original engineer on the project, very integral to the modifications that we are asking the board to consider this evening. And with that, I would like to pass the stage over to Chris, who will introduce again the modifications, and then we very much would like to have your questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. King, if you would please identify yourself with your name, your address, and any affiliation, please.
Yes, sir. My name's Christopher King with Atlantic Design Engineers. We're at P.O. Box 1051, Sandwich, Massachusetts. And as Victoria had mentioned, we are the original permitting engineer of record when the project was approved a couple years ago. I'll be as succinct as possible. As the board knows, we had our last hearing. We have received some feedback. Subsequent to that, we scheduled a site visit with some of the board members as well as applicable town entities, if you will, basically an open invite to anyone. At the site visit, we're hoping that we're able to provide enough information to answer some of the questions. I think it helped to see some of the work that has been done, understand the work that still needs to be completed, and just get a sense of the progress of the site. During the site visit, we received some additional feedback that we didn't get during the original or opening public hearing, if you will. So what we did is we took the opportunity to take the thick packet, which I have here in my envelope, that was originally submitted back in September, and speaking to some of the concerns that were raised on the site, summarize it, and add some additional test data and information and submit that to the board, which we did last week. That was the cover letter, which was accompanied with the 10 exhibits that really broke out the different components, and most of them were specific to the battery energy systems. We're in receipt from the comment letter from the peer reviewer. It was, we feel pretty limited. We feel most of the items we've already have been addressed. No further comment was required. And then we offered some real minor comments really specific to the landscape screening. And then it was just today, actually, we submitted kind of a summary of outlining the peer reviewer's comments as well as any applicable response to those. And hopefully the board has a copy of that as well. As Victoria has mentioned, we have the experts here, so we'd really like to open it up to the board. We feel that between the site visit, the original information, the additional information provided, that we've demonstrated that the major modifications are consistent with the original approval, and that they're in compliance with the applicable code requirements. And again, just reminding the board that we still are going to be doing a continued effort with Chief McGee in the fire department to make sure that the modifications meet his standards for review as well. And some of that, I think will be forthcoming further down the process. But we'd really like to open it up to the board to see if you have any questions at this point in time based on the additional information and comments that were submitted to you folks. And depending on your question, we have Nick and the experts from STEM here as well to hopefully answer anything you might have.
I'm gonna open it up to any questions or comments from the board.
So I have a question regarding, I see in one of the comments was that the applicant provide adequate safety devices and fire suppression equipment, and then it looks like on the action item, it says to provide documentation, regarding, I guess, fire procedure and things of that nature. So have you landed on an action item or kind of in dealing with the fire department, what your course of action is on that?
Sure, I would defer to the experts at STEM. I'm not sure if it would be Dylan or Steve, but regardless, we're going. These systems cannot be installed without the fire chief sign off. The approval. I don't want to be presumptuous, but an approval by the planning board would not give us carte blanche to just go install these batteries. We still have an additional level of review, and I think some of the specific things are still to be worked out, but we are going to be designing and constructing these systems so that they meet the chief's, or that satisfy his concerns, if you will. If there's something specific, again, I would turn it over to either Steve or Dylan with STEM.
Gentlemen from STEM, any comments?
Yeah, so in the most recent submission that was submitted, what we tried to do is try to distill some of the documentation inside a summary document, highlighting some of the key fire suppression system and safety systems that are included. As Krista mentioned, it's very important that we aren't able to install any of these systems unless they're meeting code compliance and making sure that they do have the proper safety requirements per the jurisdiction. So in the summary document, what was done is kind of highlights all the key components that are included to mitigate any heat rise or fires that may occur, and then loop that back as to how those specifically address the code to make sure that these are code compliant systems and do have the suppressions that are required for this type of installation. Is there a specific item that you would like to pull out directly, or is the new submission with the summary that kind of highlights the larger document sufficient at this point?
Well, I just wanted to bring it up because I think it was a concern for not only the residents, but some members of the board. I think the batteries are, in my opinion, I don't see, if they're safe, I think they're a great thing. So I'm just looking to making sure the steps are in place to make sure they're safe, that's all.
Excellent. And just to highlight a couple points, all these batteries, there's certain tests and things in place that's been summarized in the document that we submitted. So I can highlight a couple points here, but I encourage you to look back at the submission, the summary document. We tried to make it as digestible as possible because I know some of the information gets a little technical, but 3 things off the top of my head that these things are addressing is per code, they have to make sure that if anything goes out of voltage or a temperature range, the system's been tested to make sure that the specific cells that do go out of range do get isolated electrically. So if there's any issue that is causing them to go out of temperature range, it's immediately isolated to make sure they're protected. Additionally, in every single module, so inside the document kind of breaks out the different components of the battery. So imagine there's a bunch of smaller units that go inside these large racks. Every one of these modules actually has a layer of epoxy, which has fire suppression into it. So basically what this means is if there is something that goes out of temperature range accordingly, what these systems do is they actually target on the module level, so right at the source, to ensure that if anything does go out of turn or out of the normality, the fire suppression system that is embedded at the local level all throughout the rack, the larger components, what it's really trying to do is target at those specific areas. So the idea is that there is inherent devices that are built in as outlined in the document that we submitted that kind of walk you through the different layers and at each step what sort of interventions are in place in order to ensure that if rising temperatures are noticed that they're handled and directed and controlled locally exactly at the specific points of the array or the rack to help mitigate and suppress any issues.
Thank you.
Hey, Chairman, if I may, I have a few questions about the particular subject.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. So I guess one thing I want to point out, and I've read through the original you all report here on the back of this whole package when you guys first sent this out. I saw the testing that was done at the module component level, and with the offending module and I guess your target, so to speak, in the report here, and then all the other ones around it. And I just want to point out so that the rest of the board is aware. I think you need to be careful when you call it a fire suppression system. It's not a system. It's a treatment because if you look on the top of, hang on, I should have this page up, and this is in their submitted package, and this is, and we need to, and I'm in complete agreement that we need to be comfortable with it as a board, but ultimately it's up to the fire chief to make a call on this to make sure he's comfortable with what's being presented here. But on the document, right by it, there is the enclosure itself that holds the batteries does not have a fire suppression system. So we all need to understand that. Here it is, I found it. So on the firefighting guide for first responders, SunGrow Samsung Energy Storage System, big red box there says, note to the fire chief, and I'm just going to summarize, there's no dry agent extinguishing system because this could actually cause an explosion. May lead to explosion as noted here. So they don't use, that's not the method they use for fire suppression. As Mr. Firth mentioned, they are treating each individual module with an epoxy blanket almost. Is how, correct me if I'm wrong here, but from what I was reading, that's what what is it called? Has a specific name. Go back to the top here. Excuse a delay.
Is it Novak 1230?
Novak 1230 fire suppression. So it's not a system, and it's at the module level. So, and then it goes into methods for what the fire department would have to do if they were fighting the fire. So I've read through this, and I just want to tell you, Mr. Chairman, I don't have any concerns. I know there are other concerns within the board, so I'll leave the rest of the board to express their own opinions and concerns. But from what I've read here, I think they've done their homework, and knowing the history of these things being installed around the state of Massachusetts specifically, I don't have any concerns with that. But again, we need to leave it up to the fire chief and company to make the final call how they feel about that. For me, I'm good here for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Cavallo. Gentlemen, you've heard information on regards to the battery storage facility up at the facility. I prefer not to act on that right now. I'd like to move on to the situation with the telephone pole relocation, that major modification. Information that we received down from the applicant came down in September of 2021. And those poles were moved long before National Grid even signed off on any of that. It's in the packet. As looking at the location change, it does fit the criteria. The distance between poles is on the plans is sufficient. If the members of the board have no questions of the applicant in regards to the relocation of the telephone poles, I'm gonna entertain a motion to accept a major modification for the movement of the telephone pole locations.
One second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion on the pole location? Hearing none, let's vote by roll. Vice Chairman Woods. Aye. Member Figurito.
Aye.
Member Cavallo.
Aye.
Member Cunha.
Aye.
Chairman Ryan's aye. I want to move on to the second issue that was brought up at the location of the facility, and that's the possible installation of panels within the infiltration basin itself. Personally, I don't want to act on that right now because we don't know exactly, we do know exactly the location of the potential moving of those panels. But I'd like to hold off on any vote on that modification to gather some more information on that. Unless the board has anything else they would like to add or ask of the applicant before I entertain a motion. Mr. Fascindolo or Mr. King, would you guys just expound upon that, on the potential of the moving of panels inside of the infiltration basin? I just want to get some clarification before we decide to
Sure.
move forward.
I'll try to keep my piece limited to the original design, if you will, how that compares. The site was originally designed with panels extending over the basins. When they re-racked the system based on the final panel that was procured, the racking changed slightly, so in the basin in the back, the panels were actually removed from it, and in the basin in the front, the rows extended a little bit further. I think it's important to note, and as submitted, that these basins, the one in the front in particular, is designed to drain completely within 72 hours. That's the requirement. That's the standard, and that's what will happen out there. We know that it was a temporary condition. It's getting clogged up with sediment. And once the site has a chance to vegetate and we do some clean out of the basin, that the intent is that that basin will drain within 72 hours. If unforeseen circumstances come up where we need to make modifications to that basin, we fully understand we would have to not only come back, depending on those changes, to the planning board, but also continue coordination with the stormwater committee as well. But as part of the original design, it was never intended that that basin holds the water that we observed during the site visit. So it's a little misleading when you're out there. At the end of the day, this basin, under the higher frequency storm events, will fill up, but again, it will drain within 72 hours. And during the more frequent events, it's basically, the footprint of the water, if you will, while it's draining, will not be directly underneath the panels as observed out on the site.
So that rack that you're looking to install would be outside of the buffer zone of the basin itself, is the question.
I'm sorry, the panel racking.
The panel racking the location of the panel racking will be outside of the 50-foot buffer zone that's required around that basin, is that correct?
No, the panels are within 50 feet of the basin, if you will. The basin, there's a true defined bottom, if you will, and the panels are outside of the bottom.
Scope of the bottom.
The basin, when we talk about basin, what's the extent of it? From our design and the original storm modeling standpoint, it was the 100-year storm. That's what we're tasked to design to. So when you extrapolate out the 100-year storm elevation and delineate that on the plans, that's where the panels extend into it. But again, that's a small peak, if you will. And so it's only there for a very short period of time as it starts to drain. Right now, the basin isn't draining, so it's kind of giving again, the impression that there are panels that are constructed, into the basin.
Given that appearance.
Yes, exactly. And that will be remedied. I mean, that's one of our tasks as part of the original special permit as well as the stormwater permit, which we have out there, and we will need to remediate that. And if there's something that we need to do above and beyond what was approved, we will certainly work with the town ahead of time to let you know aware of any issues and any changes we foresee out there.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the board to the applicant? Mr. Cavallo?
Nothing here, no.
Mr. Cunha?
None here.
Mr. Figueredo? Mr. Woods?
Did I see a fence go around that stormwater basin? And when I drove by, I thought I saw that may have put a fence around it. It kind of looked like that from the road. I didn't pull in.
Well, I know, so when we were out there, the perimeter fence was not installed.
Oh, okay.
So they probably have made progress. Either Nick or maybe Ahmed could speak more. So the perimeter fence is finished. So right now, the site is secured with a 7-foot-high perimeter fence with a locking gate.
But
with a
there's no
knock box.
fence directly around the?
No, it's, the perimeter is
Okay.
our security fence, if you will. If, we were talking about the progress of the fence installation, understanding the concern. I think, if, I don't think it's warranted, but, we could certainly install like an orange snow fencing around the basin until the basin is remedied and drains properly, so that not only, the public, but also, for worker safety, sure, I think that would be a reasonable, in
I was
between.
alluding to that, I was going to allude to that. I had a discussion with the building commissioner about that up there because it does run into a risk of public safety right now. Even though the perimeter fencing is in, you could have someone still scale that fencing, and then, unfortunately, you have an accident up there.
Sure. So, I think that if we would certainly be amenable to installing a temporary snow fencing around that just to provide an added level of protection until we're able to do the work to the basin so it functions as designed and drains.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do we have?
Well, how about screening on the Boiselet side of the
I was
property?
gonna get into that.
Other than the trees, could you put
Yep.
some of that
So
stuff that goes in the fences, like, I don't know what they call it?
that's the slats.
Slats,
It's
yeah.
So this project, we put in the black vinyl on
Yep.
the residential sides. We feel that once we have a chance to plant the plants that were shown on the plan, when we were out there, it was a little misleading because the plants, it was, they were still bound up from travel. They haven't had a chance to, fall out, if you will. The staggered rows weren't installed. And in addition to the staggered rows of the evergreens, we also have some native reforestation to kind of break that up. And we feel like the slats, you're not even going to be able to see the fence if the screening is designed properly. During the original permitting, the planning board, I feel, put a good mechanism in place where we were required to post a landscape bond, and that would give us, and we agreed to go back, and after the plantings have established and we've completed everything, go back, take a look, and see, is the screening providing what we said it was going to, and if there are any holes, we would agree to plant additional plantings where it makes sense to, based on the, every plant is a different, so depending on species selection, location, and all that. And there's a bond in place to ensure that, the applicant follows through with that. So I would encourage the board to rely on that original mechanism, let the site construct the screening, and then give us a chance to evaluate it once everything is complete before require additional measures, if you will.
Sure, I feel that the slats, just a minimal price for a little bit of privacy for these people. All right, they've been put through a lot already. How much are we talking here? We're talking small money to put in some slats for maybe 100 feet. I don't think we're being unreasonable to ask for something like that.
I would say this, once all the plants are planted, let us go out and take a look, and if there are areas
It'll give them some
if there are
privacy.
areas that we would, instead of installing additional plants, maybe put up some slats, we would certainly be amenable to that. Again, I think it's you know, it's a this or
I
that,
don't
but
wanna
what
nickel
makes
and
the
dime
most
you, but,
sense?
you know, we're talking small money. I mean, you're talking millions of dollars you're spending there.
Yeah,
Sure.
we're looking at the situation, Mr. Woods, it could be one or the other, or both. So,
I think it's reasonable.
I absolutely
what
agree.
you're saying,
No, absolutely agree.
that-
Go ahead, Mr. Figueredo, I'm sorry.
I think it's reasonable to go with that route if you're willing to come back, if we need to in the future and do it, then I'm okay with it. That's
I think the same situation should apply to the resident on the east side.
Yeah,
So, you know,
Yeah.
not only the Beausoleils, but also the resident on the east side.
sure, and, you know, again, we're willing to work with everyone involved. You know, again, I think that the original plan was a good screening plan, along with the black vinyl. Let us complete that. We're certainly willing to come back. We have to come back because we need final sign-off, and at that time, we can take a look, and if we identify an area that needs plants, slats, or both, we can identify them in the field and really target, you know, that treatment, if you will. And I think that that would be covered under the spirit of the original intent and the original bond posted.
Yeah, I've looked at your rebuttals that was given to us from Green International in regards to especially the, you know, the tree screening. And it seems to be right now that they have been planted on center in regards to, and they are approved, with the approved plans, they have been planted in the locations that have been provided by the plans. So, gentlemen,
Well, I'd like to say one more thing, too.
Sure,
You know,
Mr. Woods.
not only do the residents have to look at the solar array, they have to look at these battery storage units also. So I would like to see some slats installed, you know, and we're talking short money here. You can't give me an answer on that?
I mean, yeah, we can, if you let us know, I mean, would it be along the whole fence line, or is there a certain area? If you let us know where you would like slats.
I'll let you know. I'll
we'll
go
cer-
down there and look at it
we'll
and see
s-
how many feet.
Sure,
you
we'll
know,
absolutely,
And I won't be unreasonable about it. We'll be reasonable,
sure.
okay?
We'll absolutely work with you.
Good? Thank you.
So, gentlemen, I'm going to go back to the motion on the floor. I'm gonna entertain a motion that we approve the major modification for the relocation of the racking system outside of the infiltration basin.
You gonna ask for any public input first?
I'm gonna get to that, Mr. Woods.
I'm sorry.
That will be on the, before we go into, we'll have a vote, and then before we'll have discussion. We'll have the discussion
make
period. Motion has been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? I'm gonna entertain the residents. Sure, absolutely. Who's like, come to the podium, identify yourself, please. Your name and your address.
Lauren Beausoleil, 1680 Pine Street.
Alan Beausoleil, 1680 Pine Street.
I know you have, I thought we were going to be able to speak before you approved the polls, but there was a question asked last time if the polls, if the equipment made any noise, and they were supposed to check into that.
There is gonna be no equipment that's gonna be on those poles, but if we do not approve a major modification for battery storage, then the inverters will be on the poles.
Right, but they were supposed to check to know if they made any noise on the side of our house.
Very minimal. I've been by many solar farms, and they're at a lower decibel rate than I would say a kid riding a bicycle down the street. They don't give off a lot of hum, as in like some living in regards to underneath a set of power lines, where that's just a constant, 25, 30 decibels. These are only putting out 10 or 15 at max.
Well, Mr. King was asked to check last time. I don't know if he did.
Mr. King, please.
I have some additional information on that. We did reach out to the utility company. The equipment on the pole is basically the same for both the customer and the utility. There's a recloser, there's a switch. In this instance, it's a gas-operated air brake, and then there's also a meter. all of which don't make noise. The meter obviously is running. The recloser and the GOABs are really operated by a utility company or the customer, which would require a truck, a line truck, beside the poles. And the noise coming from the line truck is going to make more noise than the recloser or the GOAB switch, both of which, as you alluded to, I mean, it's very low. I don't know the exact decibel level directly under it, but as soon as you get outside of 10 feet of the pole, it's not audible. The ambient noise is going to be louder than it. You can't hear, this is, you know, a summary of some emails we received from the utility, but the recloser, you can't hear the recloser. It's a vacuum bottle. The contacts only move an inch. And then the GOAB, or the gas-operated air brake, doesn't make, they call it much noise. It's underneath, directly underneath the pole, like I said, but it's inaudible as soon as you get basically to the next pole, and that's only operated while the truck is there, and the truck will be running. So you would hear the truck before you heard the equipment itself operating. And you know, just to kind of bring it all back again to my part in the original design, is all of this equipment was originally part of the project, but it was on less amount of poles. I know that's not proper English, but not as many poles are required to initially. And the utility company basically said that you can't put multiple pieces of equipment or shared poles, and so that's what required the additional poles. But so we're not changing the equipment, we're really just spreading it out to more poles, and we've actually moved it further away from the Beausoleil's residence than what was originally approved. So we feel from a noise standpoint, it's a non-impact.
As for the landscaping was not what it says on the plans. What it says on the plans was 8 to 10 feet on center for going, I don't know how you want to say it, horizontally. And then there are 2 rows, and in between those 2 rows was 7 feet on center. Just by looking at it, you can tell that's not what's been done. They are not, as they say on them.
They're roughly 14 to 17 feet apart. They're not 10 feet on center.
Is that just by a visual look through your back window, or has someone been on site illegally to
didn't.
measure
You
these?
can
No,
see.
these are just questions I just want to pose, that's all, because.
No,
When you
but
go
we-
on site, I've measured enough stuff and I've built enough things to know that that isn't
But
10
if you
feet
visually
on
look at
center.
it from 100 yards away, Mr. Bosley, you're not going to be able to tell what the distance is.
I'm not 100 yards away, I'm 50 feet away on my property.
No, I'm just posing that, that's all. I'm not.
Was it that you staggered them?
He did.
With 2
They are
rows?
They did.
staggered.
they are staggered, but not on center.
No matter what, they should have, if they're 8 feet on center, they should be on 8 feet on center on the opposite side so that they're centered with each.
They're
other.
not 8 feet on center, though. That's the problem. They're much further apart. If they were 8 feet on center, they'd be here with one in the middle. They're this
I'll
far
say there's a
apart with
couple
one
of
in the
them.
middle.
There are a couple of them that look to be the way they're supposed to be. They look to be 10 feet apart. But if you go down the row alongside our property, absolutely not. You can tell
Somebody
just
might have
by
had a
looking.
bigger tape measure than the other, so that,
A tape measure is a tape measure. An inch is an inch.
I think that's good, that's something that has to be according to the plan. I mean, there's nothing.
But it's,
We can look into
well,
that.
look into it. Go over and measure it,
and with-
please.
We can look into that.
Okay. As for the panels, I only bring up, it's a bylaw, you can't see it from the street. They're right there. They're right there. I don't know how, it's a bylaw. Aren't we supposed to abide by the bylaws? As for the batteries, of course, our concern is the safety and the safety protocol. Any health implications from putting these battery storage units there? Do they produce any noise? Do they produce any noise? The battery storage?
We'll defer to the engineer. Sir, go right ahead.
Yeah, so at a distance of, and we were just actually looking up the specs as this conversation was coming up, 70 decibels from a 1 meter distance, which is equivalent of an operating washing machine. That sound dissipates by 6 decibels for every doubling distance. So from the property line, I could do some quick mathematics for you, but it would be very difficult to be heard at all from the property line. But 70 decibels from 1 meter, which is about the same as a dishwasher.
So is he saying it makes as much noise as a dishwasher?
Yeah, so 70 decibels at 1 meter is the sound rating. So I just looked for a quick comparison online to show what the decibel rating is, about 70 decibels. And they're telling me that that's equivalent to a washing machine or an active washing machine, a dishwasher. So at 1 meter away, that's about how much it sounds. But 70 decibels is the number you're looking for at 1 meter distance. So it would be negligible from the property line.
By law, is there a measurement that they're supposed to be from an abutter as to the distance from an abutter?
I'd have to look into that. Since the noise is negligible, I don't believe it'll be an issue, but we can definitely take that back. I think that's a very good point. We'll take a look for you.
I'm saying for a safety issue as well as not just noise, but safety, like there must be something that the state requires or that these have to be so far away?
Yeah, so per the fire code and building code, 5 feet from any egresses or walkways or public spaces. So we're much more than 5 feet away from the property line.
Okay, as for the property lines that they do give, that they had, I don't know why they measure from the house as opposed to the property line. But the measurements that they give, so for us, they said 578 feet away, but if you go to our property line, it's 510 feet away. So what they were measuring was to the building, not to our property. So if there is some sort of distance that they're supposed to be away from property, this is not indicating true measurement. And our property value. I mean, which one of you would want to be on the side of this? Which one of you would want a bomb on the side of you? How do you think we would be able to sell our home? The property value.
He was right when he said we've opposed this from the beginning. King was right. We have opposed it from the beginning. Wouldn't anybody here oppose it, trying to protect your family, your home, your investment? Would you just lay back and go along with it? Maybe you would, but that's not the way I'm built. It's my family, it's my home. I'm gonna fight until I have no fight left, until it's absolutely all gone. I hope everybody here would have done the same thing for their family.
Understood. Mrs. Bosley, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Yes, I do.
Retention basin or detention basin.
Who has the ultimate responsibility to ensure that the battery system and solar arrays will be maintained and built according to federal, state, municipal, governmental authorities and ensure public safety? Who does that fall on?
Sir from STEM, is it?
Who does that fall on? Who has the ultimate?
So batteries are, the batteries are regulated. They're certified by a body called UL Certification. So any batteries that are, it's a global certification company. So anything that is sold in North America must meet the UL ratings. So there are governing bodies to make sure that these units are safe and meet standards. And then in addition to that as well, anytime they are installed anywhere, obviously they also need to follow the fire code as well. So the two bodies there is the global UL certification that has to pass these certifications in order to be installed in North America. And then once again, when they do get installed, also in addition to that, follow and meet the fire code as well. So there are standards that govern these to ensure they're safe to install in North America.
I get that they meet the fire code, or at least they say they do, but who is the person ultimately responsible? So let's say it doesn't follow it, then who is the recourse?
And I'm trying to understand the question. I think it's a good point, but I'm trying to say that these are tested to a global standard level, and the units are then stamped off by a certifying body, which is UL. So they wouldn't ever make it into the field unless they had passed that certification and got that certification, which these systems do have that certification we distribute in North America.
Okay, sir, and how often are they audited? How often would they be retested? If the permit is approved, when's the next time someone looks at them or checks them? And who would that person be?
So the certification is kind of like a manufacturing certification, similar to if you got, let's say, even an extension cord, it would also be active certified in UL. So similar to any type of equipment that's being sold or used inside public space inside North America, it has these certifications. As far as ongoing maintenance of the battery itself, there is a yearly ongoing preventative maintenance that is provided by the battery manufacturer. But that maintenance is more to ensure the length and warranty of the unit, to be sure it's operating optimally for the length it's intended to. But similar to something like an extension cord or an oven or a stove, those get built to certifications and then allowed to install to the field.
Okay, let me read this as I have it written. How often will the battery storage be inspected, and will the town officials be present during the inspection?
That's a good point. I'd have to bring that back to see if the town would want to be involved for these inspections. As mentioned, the yearly inspections are typically a preventative maintenance operation, similar to how you would service the solar field or service a transformer yearly to make sure that things are still working in orderly shape. I would have to take it back to the team if that's something that the town would also be willing or wanting to take part in yearly.
Will the town have unilateral audit rights concerning the batteries and solar arrays?
I'm unsure if I understand that question. Maybe Chris King, you could speak to this, Chris? I'm sorry. Unilateral audit rights?
Will the town have unilateral audit rights? Do you plan on auditing it? Auditing it?
I'm not sure exactly what that means, and Dylan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe these systems have a performance monitoring system, for lack of a better term. Maybe you can describe that better. So, although the preventative maintenance inspections are performed on an annual basis, there is an operator or a system in place that makes sure that the batteries are always performing as designed in accordance with the UL listing and the applicable fire code requirements. Is that correct, Dylan?
Yeah, that's correct. So these systems are 24/7 monitored by the STEM Network Operation Control Center. STEM currently operates over 700 batteries in North America. So we're very good at monitoring these systems. It's important for us to make sure that they are operating at optimal levels and most efficient. So we do monitor their performance on an ongoing basis. The purpose here is that if they start to not operate optimally, it's our due diligence to the customer to make sure that we determine why, and then make sure they are operating properly to get the most use out of the system. So that's absolutely correct, Chris. We do monitor these systems. We make sure that they are performing to the optimal levels, and in turn making sure that we're benefiting the state as much as we can with this asset.
I ask this to the town. Are you going to audit them and watch them? I ask this to the town.
I don't think that it would be us that would answer that. Maybe Chief McGee would probably.
Well, would you request an annual report from that company, just to make sure that everything is consistent?
And make it public so we can know.
If they're monitoring it, they must keep records of it, just so that everything is monitored, consistent, there's no, discrepancies from year to year that could be concerning.
I understand that, but I don't think the planning board would have any idea what we're looking at when it comes to that. I mean, it's gotta be permitted by the fire department. I think the fire
Then-
department may keep records of
Then
that.
whoever the pertinent town official would be, could you provide public documentation of inspections and exercise audit rights over the 25 years, or however it is?
I think that's a discussion that we could have with the applicants. If, I think the board would be willing to ask the applicants if they would provide 6-month or 1-year updates on the internals, if it all is passed. That's something that we could look at. As the gentleman from STEM said, that what happens is that from what I understand, the systems are monitored, it could be out in California, for goodness sakes, doing it through a computer. You know, if they see anything that's abnormal, they have the capability of shutting down that one particular unit at that time, correct?
Yes, he explained that. That was very well explained.
And one other thing, the escrow. This, I can only imagine what it would cost to get rid of this kind of hazardous waste to the town. If these people run away and become bankrupt or whatever, what would that do to the town for hazardous waste?
Well, we already require a decommissioning bond for the array as it stands, and I'm sure that if battery storage is approved, that the decommissioning fee would, raise exponentially. And that's something that we would have to look at to see what other towns have done within the state, if they have approved something of this nature, just to see what the cost would be to decommission. Because there already is that bond set aside for the racking panels on site right now as it stands.
And from the stormwater, there was something about a smart plan, have you been through that? Is it as?
Well, that does not pertain to, the SMART plan does not pertain to the Stormwater Committee, Mrs. Bosley. The SMART program pertains to the state program. There's a lot that is given the applicants the right to apply for the program through the state of Massachusetts and the federal government in order for them to receive tax breaks.
Correct. But I'm just saying this is where I heard from it.
I understand.
Where I heard about it.
I was going to
So,
touch on that a little bit.
Okay, then we'll leave it to you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. I think
Anything
that's-
further, Mrs. Bosley? Mr. Bosley?
What Mr. King said about the 72-hour drainage, I think the groundwater level there is so high that you're gonna have difficulty unless that's piped out of there. I'm not an engineer, but that thing hasn't drained yet, other than with a 3-inch pump. So,
And we
could you
have,
explain to me how that water is gonna drain? Because all I'm looking at is a mosquito haven.
Well,
That's
what
all
happens
I-
right now, Mr. Bosley, is that the berm that they have installed in any of the environmentals, as in what we call a jute system, and that has hay and a seed that's already in that, where that needs to take time. So what happens is that acts as a natural infiltration through that, so you're not gonna accumulate as much water inside that basin because of the way the berm is designed to go away from the system itself, from the basin. So, again, with the environmentals that they have put in place, as in the jute on that berm to stabilize, that'll be grown. So what they're also gonna do is that they don't wanna do it now, is they'll come back out in the spring and replant non-invasive species relevant to the area. And that also includes your extra buffer on your north side, and also the buffer that runs on the east side to the gentleman who also abuts the array. So that'll be done in the spring. It's all, again, weather dependent.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mrs. Goulart, if you may, please.
I have some information here. It's not in the same order that the questions were asked, but I'll go through it. Relative to the questions about annual reports and unilateral auditing rights, local officials, who's responsible. The same local officials that are responsible for the day-to-day operation of this community, for everything in it, are the people who are responsible, whether it's the fire chief, the police chief, the building commissioner, the highway superintendent, the stormwater committee, and any other group, the Board of Health. That's your local control, oversight for however long it's here. And obviously, you all know this is not the first solar farm we have, which means the ones that are operational are all under monitoring one way or another. They may not have batteries, but as far as stormwater, drainage, runoff, detention, retention, you name it, local officials are responsible. Additional data can be requested, and that would be up to the individual officials who have specific duties relative to this. So personally, having done compliance auditing, I'm not concerned about that. I'm sure it will be addressed. The fact that there's a uniform monitoring system for the batteries, I think, is good news. Relative to the plantings, this was discussed at Stormwater today, and the tree warden was there, Mr. Ferry, and he talked about the need to allow these plantings to grow and spread out, because if you look at them the way they are, and if they're still bundled up, you know, like a Christmas tree, you gotta let it spread. From what Mr. Ferry described, he expects to see that there will be fill-ins, but you don't want these trees doing this, because they'll start killing one another, and then you got another problem. So as far as, I'll call it monitoring of plantings, I think we've got the person we need on staff, again, another local official who has the qualifications and the experience to provide oversight. And if there are gaps, I'm sure we'll get in touch with the owners of the solar farm and say, we need a couple of trees planted here, there, or a couple died, you need to fix that. So I'm not concerned about that. The temporary fence around the basin, I think, is an excellent idea. That was mentioned when we were on site, and it came up again today at the stormwater meeting. So I'm glad to hear that they're willing to put something in, whether it's a snow fence or something. The major concern being water is attractive for children. They just got to go check out the pond, and some might think there might be fish there, which we all know that's not the case. But that's not what children think. They see water, it's an attraction. So the fence is a good idea. The Stormwater Committee is just waiting for the final information, when everything's done and the basin is cleaned out, because we know that the silt has accumulated. It has been cleaned and it's still accumulating, and that's why it's not draining. So the Stormwater Committee is comfortable waiting for the final, I'll call it work on the basin, so that the gunk in it gets cleaned out, the grass grows, and the basin drains within 72 hours. And I would state, rest assured, that water will not be allowed to sit in that basin long enough for mosquito larvae to hatch, because that's now the Board of Health that would be brought in, and also Bristol County Mosquito Control. So that's not going to happen. The only other question I have that wasn't mentioned tonight, I understand the explanation about the coating on the battery units. And no, it's not a fire suppression system. But one of the things I had asked about that I didn't hear mentioned tonight was, can there be, or will there be, I think should there be, or there should be, some kind of an alarm system that since we know these units are monitored 24/7, the batteries also, my understanding is the actual panels, the modules. If one of them starts to malfunction or is not generating, something automatically sends a signal to somebody. So with that kind of capability, I would think there's got to be some way to hook up an alarm system, whether it's to the communication center or directly to the main fire station. But that's just something that I didn't hear discussed tonight that came up at the site visit. And something that I think probably could be done simply because of the monitoring that's in place. As a matter of fact, that call, I'll call it that alarm call, could even come from whoever's doing the monitoring, because if they get the signal there's a problem or there's a potential for a fire or anything else, it would seem they could certainly make the call or send something to the fire department, just as a heads up. Other than that, we covered most of the things that we had discussed at the site, And in listening to this tonight, again, the only thing I can see that stormwater is waiting for, other than your total decision, but if you go through this step by step, the only thing we're waiting for is when everything's in and the basin's cleaned, it's gonna drain within 72 hours. Thank you.
Thank you. Any-
Commissioner.
Mr. Aguirre, this is Mr. James Aguirre, Building Commissioner.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. Hello, everyone. Hello, Dayton. Thank you for allowing such prolonged discussion under a question, a vote on the floor, but it's warranted. There are lots of things that I have to say. However, I think we're looking at this major modification in 3 separate areas. There's no way Dayton's gonna vote on battery storage units tonight. What we are gonna do, though, is make sure we use this discussion. There are proponents and there are opponents here. We're gonna use the discussion to come up with standard permitting, operating, maintenance, and procedures that make sure that we've done everything we can to ensure the safety of the people of this community. The state has embraced this, the country's embraced this. They're going to happen. One way or another, eventually it will happen. But I think we need to take this as an opportunity to sit back, absorb the information, not be rushed to decision. We won't have this jammed down our throats, I can assure you that. But we will do this in a coordinated, orderly fashion. We'll have the discussion, we'll have the debate, we'll listen to the people who are for, listen to the people who are against, we'll listen to public safety concerns, we'll listen to neighborhood concerns, and in the end, I'm sure we'll come up with what's right for the people of this town. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Aguirre. Before we continue, I just want to make a few brief statements myself as the chair. It's my understanding right now that the Department of Public Utilities is sitting on 100 megawatts of a backload, okay? 100 megawatts of a backload to get onto the grid. Now, all I kept hearing was a target date of October 11th. Yes, their target date of October 11th was for this round of funding through the SMART program. As research I've done today through the SMART program and the DPU and the PCU, Public Commission Utilities, they have not completed any of the parameters for safety on these things. Right now at this point, it's still up in the air through all 3 entities. So I think there's something that needs to be looked at. Personally, I've read through this. I will testify, I'm not an electrical engineer. Some of it is not native to me. Some of it I do understand, working in the construction industry. I also want to again, refer back to the SMART program. Okay, and this was a article that was in the newspaper up in the western part of the state. It was dated November 15th. And this is Representative Jeffrey Roy, who is in the Merrimack Valley region. It urged the DPU Commissioner to implement the Solar Massachusetts Renewable Target Program, and swift action is needed for Massachusetts to make progress toward its ambitious 2030 energy goals. However, it's been over 18 months that the Department of Energy Resources, DOER, finalized regulations to expand the program, and the inaction of the Department of Public Utilities on municipal non-controversial issues has failed to implement the program, wasting the time needed to reach the state's goals of 2030. So I want everyone to take that into consideration. The DPU and the DOER have not finalized any of the SMART programs for monies to go out, and also fire suppression. So gentlemen, me personally, I just want to make the statement, is the planning board received this information from the applicant on November 11th. November 11th, as we all know, was Veterans Day. Town Hall was closed due to a holiday. Town Hall was also closed on Friday. Our administrative assistant does not return back to work until Monday morning. I received this information this Monday morning. How could I condense 75 pages of information in 2.5 days? And I'm sure our fire chief, who is here, I will not speak for him this evening, but I'm sure he has not had an opportunity to condense all this information in 1.5 days, because he did not receive this until Tuesday afternoon. So gentlemen, I've said, what I'm gonna say in regards to this issue, so I'm going to entertain a motion to take this major modification.
I'm sorry, you still have a motion on the floor about the basins?
Excuse me, before we move on, I have a motion on the floor in regards to the infiltration basin and the piano racks, outside of the buffer zone. There's been conversation, there's been discussion. Any further discussion on that prior motion? Hearing none, let's vote by roll. Vice Chairman Woods.
Yay.
Aye.
Member Figueredo. Member Cavallo.
Aye.
Member Cunha. Chairman Rhines, aye. Thanks. I'm going to move on to, at this time, I'm going to entertain a motion to take this fourth item, major modification, under advisement until our next meeting date,
December 1st.
December 1st. That'll give adequate opportunity for the fire chief to go through the information. It'll give adequate opportunity for our building commissioner also to look through this, members of the board, our legal counsel, of course, and our engineers, our peer review engineers.
Mr. Chair, we had one more, there was although we feel minor in nature, another part of this major modification request was the slight change to the culvert getting into the
What is right
project.
in the beginning.
And just to speak to some of the concerns, you know, our intent isn't certainly to jam this down. We understand that you just received the information, and we appreciate the opportunity to be able to work with the town to develop some of these standards and safety review criteria, if you will, and working with the fire chief to establish, you know, I guess the standard of operation for these systems specific to the town. And we would just encourage everybody, if you have any questions and we can help, because there's a lot of information, as you see, submitted as part of these systems, but if there's anything we can help break down or better understand or provide additional information at any stage, you know, please feel free to reach out to anyone on the project team, and we'd be happy to give you any information that would help that effort.
Mr. King, thank you for highlighting that. Members of the board, I'd like you to go into your packet, if you would, please, on seventh page in, a letter from Senni and Associates. It was dated November 12th. You'll see that in the first paragraph, it talks about compliance with the drainage, basin drainage standards, the minor modification of the 3-box culvert, and the addition of the proposed battery energy storage system. The culvert modification, I believe, did we vote on that already? Because we voted on the relocation of the pole on the side of the culvert. And I thought that we had voted on the culvert itself, because remember they had to condense the width of the culvert in the original application.
In the
And
original,
that's
and
when
then there was a
they-
minor modification.
That was a minor modification at the time. And the applicant had the problem of trying to find a culvert that fit the standards at that time. After we, and many town officials had gone out and recommended local contractors, they decided on their own to go with a contractor and told us the culvert was on site, which it was not. It was in North Carolina. It wasn't even built yet, the specs or any of that. So the 3 weeks, the delay of the culvert delayed 3 weeks of the project itself. So that was the fault of the applicant in that respect.
So on December 10th, we received the notification for a request for a minor site plan review to reduce the culvert from 25 to 18. Is that the one you're referring to?
Yes.
And that was approved on January 6th of 2021.
That's what I thought. So that culvert was...
Is that the one?
Correct. So for the record, Nick Fassendole, Level Design Group, we prepared the site plan. So what ended up happening was there was some minor field changes to the installation. There were concrete sidewalls, which were originally proposed. Those are modified to be riprap slopes, and the positioning changed slightly. So in doing so, we did coordinate with Stormwater Committee and the fire chief on the actual placement. The grade changed a little bit, and now there's going to be 2 inches of binder coat pavement directly on top of the concrete structure, which wasn't, the original approval didn't include that. All this was agreed upon in the field. I know we had multiple site meetings on this and inspections. So in preparing the modified plans, I wanted to make sure to capture all those changes so they're on the record of the current plans.
So there's a request for another modification to that, correct?
Correct. That was in the original letter that was submitted. It was the 4th item for the slight modification of the culvert configuration as shown on the provided plans.
That's the left one, right? Okay. Okay, gentlemen, this is going to be a 4-part motion. We're going to vote on it in sections. This time I'm going to entertain a motion that replacing the concrete wing walls of the culvert with ripraps at the slope of the culvert itself.
So moved.
Motion has been made. Is there a second? Second. The motion has been made and second. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, let's vote by roll. Vice Chairman Woods?
Aye.
Member Figueredo?
Aye.
Member Cavallo?
Aye.
Member Cunha?
Aye.
Gentlemen, I'm going to entertain a motion that the installation of the wooden guardrail along the east and west sides of the culvert and extending the wooden guardrail 15 feet west within the Brook Street right-of-way as an additional safety precaution.
Make that motion.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, let's vote by roll. Vice Chairman Woods.
Aye.
Aye.
Member Figueredo. Member Cavallo.
Aye.
Member Cunha.
Aye.
Chairman Ryan's aye. Moving on to item number 3, I entertain a motion that providing, the applicant will provide a minimum of 2-inch binder coat pavement on top of the installed concrete box culvert in lieu of the 6 inches of gravel originally approved.
I'll make that motion.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, let's vote. All in, by roll. Vice Chairman Woods, aye.
Aye.
Member Figueredo? Member Cavallo?
Aye.
Member Cunha?
Aye.
Chairman Rhines, aye. Gentlemen, I'm going to entertain a motion that the applicant regrade the area to the west of the culvert to ensure there is no isolated low point which would cause ponding of stormwater in this area.
I'll make that motion.
Motion has been made. Is there a second? Second. Motion made to second. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, let's vote by roll. Vice Chairman Woods?
Aye.
Member Figueredo? Member Cavallo?
Aye.
Member Cunha?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Rhines? Aye. Thank you, gentlemen, in regards to that and highlighting that for me. Greatly appreciated. Again, I just want to just touch on, the DPU, the PCU, the DOER is still gathering information in regards to the SMART program. I know the applicant did not meet the deadline. Again, this board's #1 mission is public safety. We care about our residents. I am a resident of Dayton as well as other members of this board. That is my main mission, is public safety. In regards to the discussion on the floor, in regards to the battery storage containers on sites, again, the fire chief has not had adequate time to review the information, as well as our building commissioner, as well as our peer review engineers, as well as the board. So again, there's been a motion on the floor to take under advisement, action item number 4, which would be the major modification for the battery storage units. If there's no further discussion, I'm gonna call for a roll call vote.
I have a discussion, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Cavallo.
Discussion point. I just want to go on, just as a point of note, I was really intrigued by one of the suggestions that the Brustley family made for having a town official or somebody in a safety position be involved in like an annual, I think Mrs. Goulart called it a compliance audit, whether it's getting information from the developer, getting information from the battery units if they do get installed, and obviously there'd be other concerns within the property. And I'm kind of not sure if we do this for any of the other solar farms, so to speak, in the town of Dayton. But I think if we're going forward, and I know we've talked about discussions at some point looking at modifying the town's bylaws, that should be something we consider adding in there, because I think it's important for safety and for the overall health of these particular things going in town, that we're a little more apprised of what's going on, so we can feedback information and keep an eye on things just for our own public knowledge, and for everybody to understand that we're in the loop and we're not just letting these things run open-ended. That's all.
Thank you. I do believe that the planning board has the power to make any amendments or addendums to our decision that's been rendered for any inclusion, if we wanted to include further screening on the project, and inclusion of possible having other town officials be involved in the safety aspects of the project. I have to, refer to council on that matter to make sure that that can be done. I do believe we had the power to.
Yeah, when we get to a decision on that, a routine monitoring, annual monitoring, inspection, I don't want to call it certification if there's no such process, but some kind of annual report or inspection, I think that would be fair and reasonable with respect to the batteries.
The applicant would be amenable to that, and again, we could work, it's, if the fire chief or a representative from the fire department would like to be present at, say, the initial inspection, they wanted to attend the first annual inspection, and then depending on the substance of the inspection, at the least, we could provide the annual inspection report to have on file with the fire department. Again, the batteries are gonna require an additional level of permitting through the fire department, and that probably fits best in that realm, if you will. But we would certainly be amenable to that.
Thank you, Mr. King. Gentlemen, there's been a motion on the floor and a second. Any further discussion on the motion?
I'd like to say one more thing, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely, Mr. Woods.
Mrs. Boisele had a good point about not being able to see the solar array from the road. So I was just wondering, as to the gate that's gonna be going up, how high will that gate be? And will there be some slats in that also? So, when you drive by, you look over, we don't wanna see a solar panel. I wanna see them.
Sure,
It says in our bylaws you can't see them. So, how high is this gate gonna be?
It's gonna be the same height as the perimeter fence, so the 7 feet.
7
And
feet.
when we go to evaluate the property line as well, we could certainly take a look at that.
Right, because that's important to them, but that's important to me too, because it's in
Sure.
our bylaw.
Sure.
And, you can just look at this other solar project going on down in the corner of Middle and Tremont Street. These people are erecting a 3-foot-high berm with an 11-foot-high fence to prevent anyone from seeing it. So, that's very costly to that developer. Put an 11-foot-high stockade fence that's gonna be strong enough to withstand a 100-year storm.
Sure.
So, it's costing this company a lot of money, so, to prevent anyone from seeing it. I couldn't believe they went along with that, but they did.
Yeah, before we vote, gentlemen, I just wanted to make the statement to the Boisseles is that the planning board has also required a landscape bond. So if any trees die on site, there will be money set aside, that they will have monies to replace any plantings. If anything, any of the junipers die on site that is, within your buffer, or the neighbors to the east buffer, that they will be, replaced, because there is a landscape bond also. as well as a decommissioning bond.
I understand, but you can see right through. I mean, you look and you can see right through.
They are just being planted, they grow at, I believe it's 18 inches every 2 years, give or take, in height and width, so.
They do
you're
grow
looking-
pretty well.
they
My
grow-
neighbor put some in, and I was amazed how fast they grew.
So,
You're gonna live a long time, guaranteed.
And may I just say one more thing, you know, understanding where we were and how we got here this evening, you know, an effort to be transparent as far as our process goes. The reason why we felt it important to somewhat separate the issues, first and foremost, we realized there was a lot of information, and this is the first battery system being reviewed this in depth by the different departments and boards. So we understood that that probably took more time than this evening's hearing. But in order to move forward with the battery component, the original project, if you will, needs to be complete and basically the system energized so that the battery installation can proceed. And the way that the utility works right now, they do not allow you to energize the system unless you get some form of certificate of compliance from the building department, whether that be on a temporary level or whatever the case may be. So, you know, just so we're not surprising anybody within the town, our intent is to approach the building inspector and ask for the original project, now that the modifications have been approved, to sign off on the original project as approved and modified, allowing us to keep the project moving forward just from the original project standpoint, working with the utility to get the system energized, and while we're doing that, give us the time to work with the town to make sure that the battery system itself meets your standards and safety expectations. And then, you know, the installation of that obviously could not happen until we move forward, not only with both the planning board, but also the fire department as well. But I'm sure someone from Grasshopper will be reaching out to Mr. Aguirre regarding how that mechanism takes shape and allows, you know, hopefully the project to proceed as planned, so.
thank you, Mr. King, Mr. Fassendall. I'd like to thank the residents who attended this evening, of course, the applicants, and our attorney, of course, Mr. Tallman, for coming out this evening. So, gentlemen, we have voted, I believe, Mrs. Easterday, this will be on the agenda for December 4th. First, I'm sorry, December 1st. So this public, I am going to entertain a motion of the board to continue the public hearing for Grasshopper Energy, 0 Brook Street, map 16, lot 28, special permit site plan major modification request until December 1st, 2021, here at 6 PM.
So moved.
Presented made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, let's vote. By roll. Vice Chairman Woods.
Aye.
Member Figueredo.
Aye.
Member Cavallo.
Aye.
Member Cunha.
Aye.
Chairman Rhines. Aye. Again, the meeting will be held here on December 21st, December 1st, 2021 at 6 PM. If the meeting venue were to change, please reach out to Mrs. Easterday, I would say, no less than 48 hours before the meeting. The meeting venue may change, we don't know, because we do have other continuing public hearings, so. Thank you.
Absolutely. And in the interim, if there's any questions anyone has while reviewing the information, please reach out. And in the event December 1st comes and it's just frankly not enough time, you know, let us know. And the last thing we want to do is waste everybody's time talking about something that hasn't had proper time to review. So we appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. The gentleman from STEM, thank you very much. We probably will be reaching out to you, I am sure.
Excellent.
Thank
Look forward to it. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.
You also have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Will do.
Thank you. Gentlemen of the board, I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Forest Hills.
Oh, jeez. Thank you, Mrs. Easterday. Gentlemen,
For a minute there, I thought you said we still had that one.
just need to find my paperwork here. Gentlemen of the board, I'm going to entertain a motion to continue the public hearing for Forest Hills Estates Special Permit Conservation Subdivision, 0 Forest Street, map 3, lot 28, 33, and 78, and this matter will be continued to December 15th meeting at 6 p.m.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, let's vote by roll. Vice Chairman Woods.
Aye.
Member Figueredo. Member Cavallo. Member Cunha.
Aye.
Chairman Rhines. Aye. Again, the Forest Hills Special Permit Conservation Subdivision has been continued to December 15th at 6 p.m. here at the Old Town Hall. If there is a change in venue, you will be notified via our office manager. Gentlemen, at this time, I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of October 21st, 2021, and November 3rd of 2021.
Mr. Chair, I've got to be difficult. I wasn't there the 3rd, so I can't vote on half of a motion. I have to abstain for the second half and only vote on the first half. So it needs to be broken up into 2 motions.
All right.
Point of order, please.
Yes.
The Attorney General has stated clearly that members of the board can vote to accept minutes if they were not present at a meeting.
Oh, interesting.
Very well, very well. I remove my statement.
Thank you, Mrs. Goulart. The motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion on the approval of the meeting minutes of October 20 of 2021 and November 3rd of 2021? Hearing none, let's vote by roll.
Who made the motion?
Aye.
Jeff did. Vice Chairman Woods. Member Figueredo?
Aye.
Member Cavallo says aye. Member Cunha?
Aye.
Chairman Rhines, aye. Any correspondence this month, Mrs. Easterday?
I don't have any at this time.
We have no correspondence. I don't believe we have anything under public input. I do want to just mention this under public input. First of all, I want to thank our cable representatives for always coming out and, supporting the town of Dayton and, recording our meetings, putting things on the cloud. Also, our office manager, Mrs. Easterday, for the outstanding job that she does in preparing this board for our meetings bi-monthly, when we are not meeting on a summer schedule. I'd like to end this evening's meeting before we adjourn that I want to wish everyone in the town of Dayton and their families a happy Thanksgiving. We're starting to get out a little bit of the pandemic. I just hope that people have that opportunity to be with family this year, and when you are, enjoy it. Individually, I want to wish everyone on my board, and especially our office manager, a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you, you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Happy
gentlemen,
Thanksgiving, everybody.
thank you, Mr. Cavallo. I hope things are well up there in upstate, wherever you are. I will not disclose the location.
Yeah, it's Syracuse, New York. It's cold
Okay.
and rainy.
Jeff, we'll see you when you get back. So at this time, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Several.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion on the adjournment? Hearing none, let's vote by roll. Vice Chairman Woods.
Aye.
Member Figueredo.
Aye.
Member Cavallo.
Aye.
Member Cunha.
Aye.
Chairman Rhines, aye. Thank you as always, Cable. Have a happy Thanksgiving and good night, Dayton.